In our final criminal class on mens rea, let me explore with you the coincidence principle. The coincidence principle requires the actus reus, the guilty act, and the mens rea, the guilty mind, occurring at the same time for a defendant to be found guilty. Although this is a general rule in criminal law, courts have developed a flexible approach to ensure justice is served when actus reus and mens rea do not perfectly coincide and align. So let me explain the general principle of coincidence and then the two principles which have been developed to ensure offenders do not escape criminal liability, the continuing act principle and the transactional approach principle. Turning to the general principle of coincidence, the general rule is that a defendant must have a requisite mens rea at the time of committing the actus reus. However, courts recognize that criminal acts often unfold over time, requiring a flexible interpretation of this principle. Let me now turn to the continuing act principle, the case of Fagan versus MPC 1969. Now, one approach to resolve timing issues is the continuing act doctrine, as illustrated in the case of Fagan versus Metropolitan Police Commission 1969. In this case, the defendant accidentally drove onto a police officer's foot. When asked to move the car, he refused. Now, initially, he lacked the mens rea to harm the officer, but because the act leaving the car on the officer's foot was ongoing, the court held the mens rea developed while the act was continuing, satisfying the coincidence principle. Now, let's finally turn to the transactional approach and the case of Thabo Mello, 1954. A broader approach is the single transactional principle, as seen in that case. In Thabo Mello, the defendant struck their victim over the head, believing they had killed them. They then rolled the body off a cliff to stage an accident. In reality, though, the victim was still alive and died from exposure. The court held that the entire series of acts should be treated as one transaction, meaning the mens rea at the time of the attack could be applied to the eventual death by exposure. Now, to conclude, the courts have developed a flexible interpretation of the coincidence principles to ensure that defendants do not escape liability due to minor discrepancies in timing. The continuing act principle and the single transaction principle are key examples of this flexibility. Thank you for watching. I hope you found the criminal law classes useful. Feel free to comment, and remember, don't forget to follow and subscribe for more.